The massive silver ship covered the sky like a second moon. It had been floating above the city for 3 days now, and the people below had stopped looking up. They had grown used to it. They had grown used to many things since the Valorians arrived on Earth 5 years ago. Yuna stood at the window of her small apartment, watching the ship's shadow move slowly across the ocean. She was 28 years old, with black hair that reached her shoulders and hands that were always dirty from working with plants. She was a botanist. She grew things. She made dead soil come alive. It was simple work, but it was hers. Her sister Mina sat on the old couch behind her, biting her nails. She was 3 years younger than Yuna, with the same dark eyes, but a louder voice. Right now, that voice was shaking. "They picked you," Mina said. "Out of everyone on this planet, they picked you." Yuna did not turn from the window. "I know. The Crown Prince of the Valorian Empire wants to marry you. Do you understand what that means?" "I understand." "Then why do you look like someone just died?" Yuna finally turned. Her face was calm, but her hands were tight at her sides. "Because I am going to say no." Mina stood up so fast, she knocked over a cup of cold tea. "You cannot say no. These are the Valorians. They own half the galaxy. They could destroy our entire planet if they wanted to. You do not say no to them." "I just did." The announcement had come that morning. Ambassador Tai Ho, the human representative to the Valorian Empire, had appeared on every screen in the world. He was a tall man with gray hair and a smile that never reached his eyes. He explained that the Empire wished to strengthen its bond with Earth. A human woman would be chosen to marry. Crown Prince Davarin. This was an honor. This was a gift. This was not a request. Then he said Yuna's name. She had been watering her tomato plants on the rooftop when Mina came running up the stairs, crying and laughing at the same time. "You are going to be a princess," Mina had said. "You are going to live on another planet. You are going to be rich." But Yuna only looked at her tomatoes, red and ripe in the morning sun, and felt something cold settle in her stomach. Now, hours later, that cold feeling had not gone away. "Think about what they are offering," Mina begged. "They will pay all of our debts. Father's medical bills, mother's funeral costs, everything. They will protect our town. We will never have to worry about money again." "I know what they are offering. Then why?" Yuna walked to the kitchen and picked up a small photo from the shelf. It showed a young man with messy hair and a shy smile. He was wearing old work clothes, covered in grease. His name was Jiho, and he fixed ships at the harbor. He had known Yuna since they were children. He had loved her for almost as long. Because of him? Mina's voice was sharp. "Jiho, you would give up an empire for a mechanic?" "Yes, he has nothing, Yuna, nothing." Yuna put the photo down gently. "He has me, and I have him." "That is not nothing." Before Mina could respond, there was a knock at the door. 3 loud bangs that shook the thin walls. Yuna opened it to find 4 Valorian soldiers standing in the hallway. They were tall, almost 7 feet, with pale blue skin and eyes that glowed like white fire. Behind them stood a woman. She was different from the soldiers. She wore a long silver dress that moved like water, and her hair was the color of starlight. Her face was beautiful but cold, like a statue carved from ice. A thin crown of crystal floated above her head, held by some invisible force. "I am Princess Elora," the woman said. Her voice was soft but carried weight, like a whisper that could crush mountains. "I am here to meet my brother's bride." Mina immediately dropped to her knees. But Yuna remained standing. Elora's glowing eyes narrowed slightly. "You do not kneel." "I do not." The soldiers moved forward, but Elora raised one hand and they stopped. She studied Yuna like a scientist studying a strange insect. "You are the one they selected." "The botanist? I am. My brother is the future ruler of an empire that spans 10,000 worlds. He is offering you eternal life, unlimited wealth, and power beyond your imagination. What do you say?" Yuna looked directly into those glowing eyes. She did not blink. She did not look away. "I refuse." The silence that followed was heavy. Mina made a small, choking sound. The soldiers looked at each other in confusion. Even the air seemed to stop moving. Princess Allura tilted her head slowly like a bird examining something it did not understand. Refuse, she repeated. That word. I know its meaning, but I have never heard it spoken to Valorian royalty. Not once in 10,000 years. Then I am happy to be the first. For a long moment, no one moved. Yuna's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears, but she kept her face calm. She had made her choice. Whatever happened next, she would not take it back. Then Princess Allura did something unexpected. She smiled. It was a small smile, barely there, but it changed her whole face. The ice melted just a little, and something like curiosity appeared in her eyes. Interesting, she said quietly. Very interesting. She turned to her soldiers. Return to the ship. Tell my brother there will be a delay. Your Highness? One soldier asked. I wish to stay on this planet for a while. I wish to understand. She looked back at Yuna. I wish to understand what makes this human say no when every logical reason says she should say yes. The soldiers left. Mina was still on her knees, frozen in fear. But Allura ignored her. She walked past Yuna into the small apartment, looking around at the old furniture. The cheap decorations, the tiny kitchen. Live here, Allura said. It was not a question. Yes, it is very small. It is enough. Laura picked up the photo of Jiho, studying it with those strange glowing eyes. Who is this? Yuna took the photo from her hands gently but firmly. Someone important? More important than an empire? Yes. Allura stared at her for a long time. Then she walked to the door. I will return tomorrow. And the day after. And the day after that, I will watch you, human. I will learn why you have said this word that no one else in the galaxy has dared to speak. She paused at the door. And then I will decide if you are very brave or very stupid. She left without waiting for an answer. Yuna stood alone in her apartment, her heart still racing. Mina was crying quietly on the floor. The shadow of the great ship still covered the sea, but Yuna looked at the photo in her hands at Jiho's shy smile. And she knew she had made the right choice. Some things were worth more than empires. She just had to prove it, princess. Allura had lived for over 1,000 years. She had seen stars die and new ones be born. She had walked on planets made entirely of crystal and swum in oceans of liquid gold. She had studied every intelligent species in the galaxy and learned their languages, their customs, their fears, but she had never met anyone like Yuna. For 3 days, Allura watched the human woman from a distance. She wore simple earth clothes to hide her identity, a gray coat and dark pants that made her look almost ordinary. Her glowing eyes she covered with dark glasses. No one recognized her as royalty. No one looked at her twice. She followed Yuna through her daily routine. In the morning, Yuna climbed to her rooftop garden and spent hours with her plants. She talked to them softly like they were old friends. She touched their leaves with gentle fingers and smiled when she found new growth. Allura did not understand this. Plants were resources. They were food or medicine or decoration. They were not friends. They could not answer back. Why did Yuna waste her time and emotions on things that could not love her in return? In the afternoon, Yuna visited her sister Mina at a small restaurant where Mina worked. They ate cheap noodles and laughed about silly things. Mina showed Yuna pictures on her phone. Yuna pretended to be angry about something, then started laughing so hard she almost choked. Allura watched from a table in the corner, pretending to read a newspaper. The sound of their laughter was strange to her. Valorians did not laugh like this. They smiled politely at formal events. They showed amusement in careful, controlled ways. But this wild, uncontrolled joy was something she had never experienced. In the evening, Yuna met her friend Sora at a tiny cafe near the harbor. Sora was loud and funny, with bright red hair and a laugh that filled the whole room. She told terrible jokes that made no sense, and Yuna groaned and rolled her eyes but smiled anyway. Why did the robot go to the beach? Sora asked. I do not want to know. Recharge his batteries. Get it? Because of the sun? That is the worst joke you have ever told. He smiled. I saw it. They argued about nothing important. They shared a piece of cake that was too sweet. They talked about dreams and memories and fears. And through it all, Elora watched with growing confusion. These humans had so little. Their lives were short, their bodies weak, their planet small and unremarkable. Yet they seemed happy. Genuinely, deeply happy in a way that Elora had never seen among her own people. On the fourth day, Elora finally saw him. Jiho. He arrived at the harbor just as the sun was setting, his clothes covered in oil and grease from his work. He was not handsome by Valorian standards. His features were plain, his body thin, his hands rough from years of labor. He owned nothing of value. He had no power, no title, no importance. But when Yuna saw him, her whole face changed. It was like watching a flower bloom. Her eyes grew soft, her smile grew wide, and she ran to him like he was the most precious thing in the universe. He caught her in his arms and held her tight, and for a moment they just stood there. Two small humans against the vast orange sky. They walked to the pier and sat on the edge, their feet hanging over the water. They talked for hours about nothing. About the fish Jiho saw that morning, about the tomato plant that finally produced fruit, about a silly dream Yuna had the night before. Elora activated the scanner hidden in her glasses. She wanted to understand why Yuna cared so much about this unremarkable man. The scanner measured Yuna's vital signs, her brain activity, her emotional state. The results made no sense. Yuna's neurological patterns showed levels of peace and contentment that exceeded anything in Valorian medical records. Her stress hormones were almost zero. Her happiness indicators were higher than any readings Elora had ever seen. Even in Valorians who had conquered entire star systems, she ran the scan again. Same results. Then she scanned Jiho. His readings were identical. The same deep peace. The same impossible contentment. Just from sitting on a wooden pier, talking about tomatoes and fish. That night, Elora sent a message to her brother on the royal ship. There is something wrong with this human. She is broken. Her mind does not work like normal beings. She shows extreme emotional responses to meaningless stimuli. She appears to derive satisfaction from activities that provide no material benefit. I am continuing my investigation, brother replied quickly. Is she diseased? Should we select another bride? Elora hesitated before answering. No, I believe this is not a disease. I believe it is something else. I need more time to understand. The next day, Elora did something she had never done before. She approached Sora at the cafe. May I sit here? She asked, keeping her voice casual. Sora looked up from her coffee and shrugged. Sure, I like your glasses. Very mysterious. Elora sat down. She was not sure how to begin. In 1,000 years, she had never made small talk with a stranger. Valorians did not do such things. You are friends with Yuna? She said finally. Sora's expression changed slightly. Who wants to know? I am. New to this area. I have heard about her situation. The marriage proposal. Oh, Sora relaxed a little. Yeah, the whole world heard about that. Crazy, right? An alien prince wants to marry my best friend. She said no. She did. Sora smiled proudly. That is Yuna. Stubborn as a rock. Once she decides something, nothing can change her mind. But why? The prince can give her everything. Sora looked at Elora for a long moment, as if deciding whether to trust her. Then she leaned forward. Let me ask you something. Have you ever loved someone so much that you would rather die than be without them? Have you ever felt like one person is your whole world, your whole reason for breathing? Elora thought carefully. In 1,000 years, she had felt many things. Pride, satisfaction, ambition, victory, but love. This wild, illogical, all-consuming thing that Sora described? No, she admitted. Then you would not understand. Sora shrugged. Yuna has Geo. They have been in love since they were kids. He is not rich. He is not powerful. But when they are together, it is like watching two puzzle pieces fit perfectly. They make sense. They make each other better. No empire can compete with that. Allura did not reply. She sat in silence long after Sora left, watching the humans come and go, laughing and crying and living their short, strange lives. That night, she did not sleep. She stood at the window of her hidden room and watched the stars. Thinking about everything she had seen, she had come to Earth expecting to find weakness. Instead, she had found something she could not name, something that frightened her, something she wanted desperately to understand. The pressure came slowly, like a storm building on the horizon. First, it was the news reports. Every channel talked about Yuna, the woman who refused a prince. Some called her brave. Most called her foolish. A few called her dangerous, threat to Earth's relationship with the Valorian Empire. Then came Ambassador Taiho. He arrived at Yuna's apartment on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, his expensive suit perfect despite the weather. His smile was wide, but his eyes were cold as ice. "I understand you have concerns," he said, sitting on her old couch like he owned it. "Let me help you understand the situation more clearly." "I understand it perfectly," Yuna replied. She stood by the window, arms crossed, refusing to sit with him. "Do you? The Empire has been patient. More patient than they have ever been with any species. But patience has limits. Is that a threat?" Taiho spread his hands. "It is reality. If you continue to refuse, there will be consequences. Not just for you. For your sister, for your town, for everyone you care about." Yuna felt anger rise in her chest, hot and sharp. "You would punish innocent people because I will not marry a man I have never met? I would do what is necessary to protect Earth's interests. The Valorians could crush us in an instant. They have destroyed civilizations older and stronger than ours. One marriage is a small price for survival. My life is not a price. My choice is not something you can sell." Taiho stood up, his fake smile finally gone. "You have 1 week. After that, the debts will be reinstated. Your sister's workplace will be closed. Your town will lose protection status. Everyone will know it is because of you." He left without looking back. That night, Mina came home crying. Her boss had received a call. The restaurant might be shut down for health violations that did not exist. Mina was terrified. "Please," she begged Yuna, "just think about it. Just consider saying yes." Yuna held her sister and said nothing. What could she say? That she was being selfish? That she knew the cost of her choice? That she lay awake every night wondering if she was doing the right thing? She went to the rooftop garden after Mina fell asleep. The rain had stopped, and the stars were visible through gaps in the clouds. She stood among her plants, breathing in the smell of wet soil, trying to find peace. "You are suffering." Yuna spun around. Princess Allura stood at the edge of the roof, still wearing her simple disguise. Without the crown and the glowing eyes visible behind dark glasses, she looked almost human. "How long have you been watching me?" Yuna asked. "Long enough." Allura walked closer, stepping carefully between the rows of vegetables. "I have observed you for many days now. I have studied your habits, your relationships, your emotional patterns, and I still do not understand." "What do you not understand?" "Everything." Allura stopped in front of her. "Why do you grow these plants when you could buy food? Why do you waste hours talking about nothing with people who cannot benefit your status? Why do you choose a poor mechanic when a prince offers you the stars?" Yuna laughed softly. It was not a happy sound. "You've been watching me for days, and you still need to ask." "Yes, I need you to explain it to me. In words I can understand." Yuna was quiet for a long moment. Then she bent down and touched a small tomato plant, its leaves still wet from the rain. "I planted this 6 months ago. It was just a seed smaller than my fingernail. I watered it every day. I protected it from insects. I talked to it when I was lonely. And now it gives me tomatoes that taste better than anything I could buy because they are mine. I grew them. I created something from nothing." She stood up and looked at Allura. "That is why I garden. Not because it is efficient, because it means something. Because the effort makes the result precious, but it is illogical. You could achieve the same result with less work, You are not listening. The work is not a cost. The work is part of the reward. Laura shook her head slowly. And the mechanic? Jiho. What does he give you that an empire cannot? Yuna smiled and her whole face softened. He listens when I talk. He remembers what makes me sad and tries to make me happy. When I am sick, he brings me soup. When I am scared, he holds my hand. When I fail, he tells me to try again. He loves me not because I am useful to him, but because I am me. These are small things. No, these are everything. Yuna stepped closer to the princess. You have 1,000 worlds. You have lived for 1,000 years. But do you have anyone who would choose you when you have nothing to offer? Do you have anyone who loves you for who you are, not what you are? Alora did not answer. I see the answer in your silence, Yuna said gently. You have everything except the one thing that matters. And what is that? Someone to share it with. Really share it. Not a political partner. Not a strategic alliance. A person who knows your fears and dreams and mistakes and loves you anyway. Elora turned away, looking up at the stars. Her home was out there, thousands of light years away. Her brother sat on a golden throne waiting for her report. Her people ruled an empire that had existed for 10,000 years, and suddenly all of it felt empty. I do not understand how you can be so certain, she said quietly. How do you know he will not leave? How do you know he will not change? Humans live such short lives. Everything you build will be gone in decades. Yuna came to stand beside her. That is exactly why it matters so much. We do not have forever. We do not have second chances. Every moment is precious because it could be our last. When I hold Jiho's hand, I know that one day I will not be able to hold it anymore, and that makes me hold it tighter. That sounds like pain. It is. And it is also joy. They are not opposites. They are connected. You cannot have one without the other. Yuna looked at the princess with something like pity. You live forever, so nothing matters. We die tomorrow, so everything matters. Maybe that is what you cannot understand. Laura stood in silence, processing these words. In 1,000 years, no one had ever spoken to her like this. No one had ever made her question the foundations of her existence. I need to think, she said finally. Take your time. That is the one thing you have more of than me. Alora left the rooftop without another word. But as she walked through the dark streets, Yuna's words echoed in her mind. You have everything except the one thing that matters. For the first time in 1,000 years, Princess Alora wondered if she had been living her life all wrong. The week passed faster than Alora expected. She spent those days not watching from a distance, but living among the humans. She walked their streets, ate their food, and listened to their conversations. She was looking for something, though she could not name it. Proof, maybe? Proof that Yuna was wrong. Proof that humans were weak and foolish and not worth envying. Instead, she found something else entirely. On the third day, Sora found her sitting alone at the cafe and invited her to a neighborhood gathering. It was a birthday party for a child Alora had never met, held in a tiny apartment full of cheap decorations and loud music. Come on, Sora said, pulling her arm. Do not be so serious all the time. The apartment was crowded with people Alora did not know. They laughed and talked and stepped on each other's feet. A woman Alora had never seen before handed her a plate of food and said, Eat. You are too thin. An old man told her a joke that made no sense, then laughed so hard at his own words that Alora could not help but smile. The birthday cake was small and lopsided, clearly made by someone who did not know how to bake. The candles were the wrong color. The frosting was uneven. But when they placed it in front of the little girl, her eyes lit up like stars. Make a wish. Everyone shouted. The girl closed her eyes tight, her face scrunched up in concentration. Then she blew out the candles. And the whole room cheered like she had just conquered a planet. Elora watched this scene with strange tightness in her chest. On Valoria, birthdays were formal events. Gifts were selected for political advantage. Celebrations were planned by committees and executed with precision. No one cheered for a lopsided cake. No one cared about a child's simple wish. But here, In this cramped apartment, with its peeling wallpaper and mismatched chairs, there was more joy than Alora had ever seen in any royal palace. On the 5th day, she saw an elderly couple sitting on a bench in the park. They must have been very old by human standards, their faces lined with decades of life. They sat close together, holding hands, not speaking. Just existing in each other's presence, Alora sat on a nearby bench and watched them for an hour. They did nothing remarkable. They watched birds. They smiled at passing children. Once, the old woman leaned her head on the old man's shoulder, and he kissed the top of her head gently. Such small gestures. Such tiny moments. And yet Alora's scanner showed their happiness levels were off the charts. On the 6th day, she followed Jiho to his workshop at the harbor. She watched him work on old ships, his hands skilled and sure despite the outdated equipment. A stranger came to him, a young man with worried eyes, explaining that his ship was broken and he had no money to fix it. Jiho listened carefully. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small amount of cash, everything he had saved that week. "Take this," he said. "Come back tomorrow and I will fix your ship for free." The young man protested. "I cannot accept this. I cannot repay you. You do not need to repay me. Just help someone else when you can." Alora's mind could not process this. In Valorian culture, resources were guarded carefully. Nothing was given without expectation of return. The idea of helping a stranger with no benefit was not just strange, it was incomprehensible. But Jiho smiled as the young man walked away. And his happiness readings were higher than before he gave the money away. He had lost resources and gained joy. The equation made no sense, yet there it was. On the 7th day, the final day before Taiho's deadline, Alora made a decision. She would watch Yuna and Jiho together one last time. She would gather her final observations. Then she would make her report. She found them at the pier as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. But something was different. Their usual peace was gone. Yuna's eyes were red from crying. Jiho's face was pale and serious. Alora hid in the shadows and listened. "You have to accept," Jiho was saying. His voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. "Think about Mina. Think about your town. Think about everyone who will suffer because of me." "I am not doing this because of you," Yuna said. "I am doing this for me. I do not want to live in a palace without you. I do not want to be a princess if it means being alone. You would have everything. Everything except you. And without you, everything means nothing." Jiho took her hands in his. Alora saw tears forming in his eyes, but he blinked them back. "Listen to me. I love you more than I have ever loved anything. You are my whole world. My reason for waking up. My reason for breathing." His voice cracked slightly. "And because I love you, I am telling you to go. Save your sister. Save your town. Live the life you deserve. The life I deserve is with you. You deserve more than a poor mechanic who cannot even protect you from this." Yuna pulled her hands free and grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. "I do not want protection. I do not want wealth. I do not want an empire. I want you. Just you. Forever. Even if forever is only 50 more years. Even if forever is only tomorrow." Jiho broke then. Tears streamed down his face, and he pulled her close, holding her like she might disappear. I am scared," he whispered. "I am scared they will take you away. I am scared I will never see you again. I am scared that I am being selfish by wanting you to stay. You are not selfish. You are the least selfish person I know." Yuna was crying too, her tears mixing with his. "You just tried to give me up to save me. That is not selfish. That is love." They stood there, two small humans wrapped around each other, crying and holding on while the sun disappeared below the horizon. Alora watched from the darkness. She had stopped breathing. Her scanner was forgotten at her side. Her 1,000 years of experience and knowledge meant nothing in this moment, because she finally understood. This was what humans had. This willingness to hurt for someone else, to give away everything precious for another person's happiness. To love so deeply that losing that love was worse than death, it was irrational. It was inefficient. It served no evolutionary purpose, and it was the most powerful force Alora had ever witnessed. She left the pier silently, walking through empty streets until she reached the edge of the city. She stood there for a long time, looking up at the royal ship floating in the sky. Her brother was waiting for her answer. Her empire was waiting for a bride, but Alora could not stop thinking about two humans crying on a pier, choosing each other over everything the universe had to offer. Something had cracked open inside her, something that had been frozen for 1,000 years, and for the first time in her endless life. Princess Alora began to cry. The royal meeting chamber was the largest room on the ship. Golden walls stretched toward a ceiling covered in artificial stars. Massive windows showed Earth floating below, small and blue and terribly fragile. Princess Alora stood before the assembly. Her brother, Crown Prince Davrin, sat on his throne, his face blank with practiced patience. Ambassador Taiho stood nearby, his smile nervous. Valorian generals and advisors lined the walls, their glowing eyes fixed on Alora. "The deadline has passed," Prince Davrin said. "What is your recommendation?" Alora looked at her brother. She had known him for 800 years. They had conquered worlds together, built empires together, and buried enemies together. But she had never truly known him. She realized now that she had never truly known anyone. "I recommend we cancel the arrangement," she said. The chamber erupted. Generals shouted objections. Advisors demanded explanations. Ambassador Taiho's smile finally died completely. Silence. Prince Devarin raised one hand, and the room went quiet. His eyes were fixed on his sister. "Explain." "I've spent 2 weeks studying humans, living among them, observing their behaviors and relationships." Alora paused, gathering her thoughts. "They are not what we believed. They're weak," a general said. "Their lives are short, their technology is primitive, and they have nothing we need." "You are wrong." Alora turned to face the general. "They have something we need desperately. Something we lost long ago, or perhaps never had." "Psst. And what is that?" "The ability to love." Silence fell over the chamber. The word hung in the air, strange and uncomfortable. "We know about love," Prince Devarin said slowly. "It is an emotional bond between individuals. We have studied it in many species. We have studied the concept. We have never experienced it." Laura stepped forward. "I watched a human man offer to give up the woman he loved so she could have a better life. He was willing to destroy himself to save her. And she refused, because being with him in poverty meant more than being without him in a palace. That is irrational. Yes, and it is also beautiful." Alora's voice grew stronger. "We have conquered 10,000 worlds. We have lived for thousands of years. We have accumulated wealth and power beyond imagination. But we have no one who would choose us over an empire. We have no one who would cry for us. We have no one who would rather die than live without us." She pointed at the blue planet below. "These humans have all of that. They have so little time that every moment is precious. They have so much to lose that every relationship is meaningful. They are not weak. They are the strongest beings I've ever encountered, because they love with everything they have." The chamber was silent. "What do you propose?" Prince Davrin asked finally. "I invoke my royal authority to cancel the marriage arrangement. Furthermore, I propose that Earth be reclassified from protectorate to cultural sanctuary." Alora turned to address the full assembly. "We should not collect humans like resources. We should study them like teachers. Their capacity for love, for sacrifice, for finding joy in small things. These are treasures more valuable than any territory or mineral." Ambassador Taiho stepped forward, his face red with anger. "This is absurd. We had an agreement. The political benefits are meaningless compared to what we could learn." Laura cut him off without looking at him. "You wish to trade a human life for political convenience. That kind of thinking is exactly why we need them more than they need us." Prince Davrin was quiet for a long time. The generals and advisors watched him, waiting for judgment. Finally, he spoke. "I trust my sister. Her wisdom has never failed our empire." He stood from his throne, The arrangement is cancelled. Earth will be reclassified as a cultural sanctuary. We will establish a research program to study human emotional patterns and social bonds. He looked at Alora. You will lead this program. No, Alora shook her head. I must go somewhere else first. There is something I need to find. What? Alora looked out the window at the stars. Something worth refusing an empire for. Before leaving Earth, Alora visited Yuna one last time. She found her in the rooftop garden, planting new seeds in fresh soil. Jiho was beside her, handing her tools and making jokes that made her laugh. They both looked up when Alora appeared. There was no fear in their eyes anymore. It is done, Alora said. The arrangement is cancelled. Your debts are forgiven. Your town will remain protected. You are free. Yuna's eyes filled with tears. Jiho grabbed her hand and held it tight. Why? Yuna asked. Why did you help us? Elora looked at their joined hands, at the way they stood together like two halves of one whole. Because you taught me something I did not know I needed to learn. She paused. You taught me what I have been missing for 1,000 years. And what will you do now? Alora smiled. It was a real smile this time, warm and uncertain, and very human. I will search. Every world, every species, every corner of the galaxy. I will look for what you have. Someone to share my life with. Someone who would choose me when I have nothing to offer. That could take a very long time, Yuna said softly. I have time. Perhaps too much of it. Laura turned to leave, then stopped. One more question. Will he make you happy? Truly. Yuna looked at Jiho. He was covered in dirt from helping her garden, his hair messy, his clothes old and worn. But he was smiling at her like she was the most precious thing in the universe. He already does, Yuna said. Elora nodded and walked away. She did not look back. Years passed. The great ship left Earth and never returned. Ambassador Taiho was removed from his position. The small coastal town prospered under its new protected status. Mina met someone kind and started her own restaurant. Sora's jokes never got better, but her friendship remained strong. And Yuna and Jiho grew old together. They married in a small ceremony on the pier where they used to watch sunsets. They had children who had children of their own. They built a life from small moments, ordinary days, and extraordinary love sometimes on clear nights. Yuna would look up at the stars and wonder about the princess who had changed everything far across the galaxy. On a distant colony world, Princess Alora sat alone in a small cafe. She had given up her claim to the throne. She had refused 3 political marriages. She had traded her crown for something more valuable, freedom to search. The galaxy whispered that she had gone mad, but she did not care about whispers. She only cared about finding what a human woman had shown her on a rooftop garden in a small coastal town. Something worth more than 10,000 worlds. Something as simple and as impossible as love. She watched the sunset paint the alien sky in colors she had never seen before, and she smiled. The search would continue. Tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that, for as long as it took. Because now she finally knew what she was looking for.